All right, we are back with another random recap. Of course, RandomlyRJ.com, and I have a Patreon, so if you want to support that, that's cool too. So here is the general breakdown. Season 1 of Allstars on Paramount Plus. I recapped this with my brother Richard, who is a super fan of the challenge. Watched all the challenge every season. So this is something we do together. Richard will be joining me post episode 1 and 2, so he'll join me on the third episode and then throughout the season. But I'm gonna go ahead and recap quickly episodes 1 and 2 of this challenge, All-Stars 2, because I feel like these first 2 episodes were sort of together, and also No One Went Home, episode 1. So we're gonna kind of put these 2 together. I'll do this solo, and then I'll have my brother to banter with as the rest of the season goes. And my first order of business is gonna be what I think about season 1 versus season 2 of the Challenge All Stars. I will say that I think how do I say it? The original on paper of the All Stars 1 was like some of my favorite people. All Stars 2, I was like, oh, not really coming in hot like the first one. But, this is what it's about. As I watched episode 1 and 2 here, it's a lot of people that I wasn't really like so stuck on as far as being like my favorite, most compelling, as a viewer. But like it really works well together, and that's such a nod to casting, because casting, I think when they do the shows, casting is as much about if you like the person, but also who they will bond with, or who will be their frenemies, or their own personal stories, which everyone has a lot. So just in context, as far as do I like this season All Stars? Listen, I like all the All Stars. I think All Stars is I do kind of favorite to the challenge, the MTV version, just because of my age, so this is much more relative to my age. But anyways, I will say that I'm being pleasantly surprised on how great this cast is. But let's just talk about who I feel is strong and who I feel is possibly lackluster. First impressions, as I said, I'm recapping episode 1 and 2, and then I'll be joined with my brother Richard, and we'll do episode 3 and beyond together. But initially, let's talk about this one. So, people that sort of strike me as like, okay, ones to watch, I will say is going to be Jody. She's always been a good competitor. She played hard. She loved hard a little bit too. And she's just, it's been so many years, so I kind of want to see where her head's at, where her mind and physicality is. Darrell, of course, he was one of the ones that just did the regular challenge, so he's of course extremely fit. He came in second place on Challenge All Stars 1, and he sort of has something to prove because he was so close to beating Yes. Not that Yes was close, but they were placed 1 and 2, first and second place. So I know that Darrell sort of knows that he could win the game, is basically what it comes down to. Derek K, of course, is so fun to watch. He knows what he's doing. He understands the assignment, all that stuff. Janae, she did so good in All Stars 1. I think Latarian didn't do as good as he wanted to in All Stars 1, so I think he has a lot to prove. Nehemiah, I think, is from the School of Wes, which is like, either be a villain or be compelling on some level. So Nehemiah is going to be fun to watch in that regard. Tyler, to me, is just freaking funny, and he also plays the game pretty big, and he has fun while he's playing the game. So I do think he's someone to watch as well. And then the last one is like a wild card too. Well, there's a lot of people that are like wild cards, but Tina, she's the confessional queen, and she doesn't miss a beat when it comes to that. People that like I was not necessarily excited about would have been Leah, Melinda, and Steve I'm on the fence with, and then Ayanna and MJ I'm on the fence with. Leah and Melinda, I just it's just so hard to say all stars, but maybe this is a great chance for each of them to prove themselves. Steve, I feel like, is a wild card just because we don't know much. We don't, it's been so long. He was on the Quest, which was, I believe, that was when they did the double casting of Real World and Road Rules. I think Katie was there, Sophia was there. This was when Coral and Hasela were also in that same casting process. So we just haven't seen him in a long time. And he's 52 years old. So, is he as savvy as some of the younger players as far as strategy or, I don't want to say manipulative, but like, Nehemiah, like he's out to win. So I'm not really sure where Steve will land with all this, but he'll be fun to watch, of course. Ayana, just because she plays so big, she plays with her heart on her sleeve. That'll be interesting. And MJ, I feel like where is MJ at right now in his life? Does he have a family? Does he have kids? Like, is he trying to, just show great character and good sportsmanship? I think he's a big guy. He's a physical guy, but we just don't know where his mind's at. So he'll be interesting to watch as well. So those are some of the people that, when I saw the show, I'm like, okay, this is some of the initial thoughts that I had. Now, I do wonder if Jodie is sort of going to try to re-edit herself and showcase that she's grown up so much. That's something that I do see. Like, it's this concept of reality TV where, you're basically trying to tell the audience, like, I've evolved past being, this particular cast member. Anyways, so it'll be interesting to see. Anyways, as we go with this recap of episode 1 and 2 of the Challenge All-Stars season 2, let's talk about the songs for both episodes just for one moment, because that to me is what makes this fun. When I do the recap with my brother, he is so much better when it comes to like the challenges and who you're voting and why you're voting, and to be 10 steps ahead in regards to this and that. And sometimes I'm just like, oh man, TJ, you with all these twists and turns, it's just not really my cup of tea. But this is what makes a recap with myself and my brother so good, is because he cares about a lot of that stuff. And you better believe that I care about the things that matter. And what are the things that matter? First of all, who's the confessional queen? As I said, Tina. Maybe even Jasmine. But the other things I care about is this this great soundtrack, or the score for the first 2 episodes. So just reciting it off for episode 1, we've got the Backstreet Boys, Backstreet's Back. We have Mary Mary, Praise You. We have Quiet Riot, Come On Feel the Noise. We have Paula Abdul, Opposites Attract. We have TLC, Creep. We have Bubba Sparks, Miss New Booty. We have Jamiroquai, Canned Heat. Mobb Deep with Halfway Crooks. For episode 2, we have Escape starting the song, which is a Jones Girl, starting the episode. Escape, which is a Jones Girls song called Who Can I Run To, which I love that song, but I never in my wildest dreams thought that would show up on the challenge. So, because it's such a R&B song, such a slow, not seductive, but like a really slower, romantic kind of song in some ways. Who Can I Run To? But I think a lot of times when they score this particular show, they use the lyrics and just try to match it to like, exactly what's happening. So Who Can I Run To? Spice Girls, So Tell Me What You Want, What You Really, Really Want. Christina Milian with AM to PM. That brings me back to so many memories. I was working in radio in Las Vegas when that song was big. I remember because she came into the radio station, and that was like a really big song. That was around the Dip It Low era. Head Over Heels with Tears for Fears with the song Head Over Heels rather. And oh my goodness, we'll get to the end of the episode, but anytime the beginning of that Bette Midler from Beaches, Wind Beneath My Wings comes on, it's going to be a moment. So that was cool too. But anyways, I just wanted to get the score out of the way. I thought it was great. That is one of the things that I believe a lot of people love about this particular challenge, is that they're going to go to these songs. They're going to take you back, It's good for people of my age, so this is great. So if you're over 35, over 40 even, like this is the show for you. Let's comb through this really quick. Like I said, my brother will join me for episode 3 and the rest of the season. But for now, we have our initial reactions to everybody. It's like a cocktail hour where everyone's basically sizing each other up. TJ arrives. Now, he is the host for the All-Stars, and I know that a lot of people love TJ, and they say things like, oh, this is TJ's final, and they always edit, the cast being so excited to see TJ. I kind of feel and I know it's, probably contractually he's, signed on to do both, but I wouldn't mind. This is just, let me throw it out there. I wouldn't mind seeing like an Eric Nies as the Allstars host. You know what I mean? Like, let TJ do the younger version, the MTV version, and someone like Eric Nies doing or Mark Long, if he's not going to be in it, let them do the hosting. Just, I don't know, something about like that they're all older and that the music and the score and the soundtrack is all of kind of nostalgia. Why don't we have a host that's of nostalgia too? So TJ's great, but I mean, we don't have to see him every episode. And it gives opportunity for somebody else, So that's what I'm thinking. But TJ's fine. He's okay. He's bold. My first thing I want to talk about is the house locations and aesthetics. So they are in Cancun this time. I think the house is way bigger. I feel like it's really fun where they're at, and I'm not saying that this is a better location or a better house, but it feels like maybe like even the budget is a little stronger. So so far so good. The Cancun location is great. They have 3 Cancun cast members from the Real World season of Cancun, which I didn't love that season. I know my brother did. I was always like, it's okay. But to have Janae, Derek Chavez and Jasmine, I think is great. I think that what was the guy's name? CJ, I think he played football. I think he would be a good cast member as well. Let's talk about the Cheers and the who hosted the Cheers. One of the things my brother looks out for is like, who is that quintessential person to lead the first day. Everyone has a drink in the air and they do their cheers. Like, who's hosting that? Bananas sort of became that for the challenge, all the years that he was on the regular challenge. And when he left, it kind of seemed like, who did it seem like? Well, on the challenge Allstars, it seemed like Anissa did it the first time, season 1. And on the regular MTV version, it seemed like Devin did it. So not that ranks you any higher or anything like that, but it definitely shows that you're somebody that everyone's respecting and listening to in the house. So yeah, it was Nehemiah who hosted the Cheers. Tech takes it back to Hawaii. And when I say he takes it back to Hawaii, I could say Ayanna was appreciating what she saw. So she saw Tech and the money. So Tech took it back to Hawaii times and he got nude. He was in the buff and he just lets it loose. So why not, right? You're in Cancun, you're on the challenge, you're having fun. And he really does showcase that he doesn't sweat the small stuff and he has a great time. But again, Ayanna was like, hubba. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about bonds and friendships. The frenemies that we have is Derek and Nehemiah. So this frenemy situation is just like, in my mind, I'm like, is this, Nehemiah sort of, I don't know. He just, I don't know what I think of him. We'll leave it at that. I feel like there's and I'll speak to this as we get through this challenge here. It seems like there is a little bit there's a tiny bit of trying too hard maybe. But you know what? This is the challenge house. Maybe that's sort of just right, And then Derek is at this point sort of his frenemy, sort of his nemesis. So far it is what it is. We also have Derek and Jody kind of bonding. They were they've worked together a lot and they kind of have each other's backs. And we're seeing a lot of these bonds and these alliances come together early on. As I said, Janae's got her 2 cast members. So that becomes sort of some big numbers as far as, we never know how, at this point, you never know how the voting is going to go. So it's nice to have 2 people you believe in and you feel that you could trust. Janae and Jasmine had beef in the past, but it seems like they're cool now. But again, this is the Challenge All-Stars house, so you never know sort of where that goes. Darrell and Janelle say that they're friends from the Bay Area, but no one really knows it. So that's actually great for us, the viewers. We're like, okay, so we didn't even, sort of put two and two together, even though we know Janelle and Darrell are from the Bay Area, but like something about even their ages possibly. Like Darrell did Road Rules many years before Janelle, but then again, maybe it wasn't that big of a gap. Nonetheless, it's something that they could use because no one really knows about. So that allows Janelle to be with her group of friends and get all her information and take it back to Darrell and vice versa. Okay, so here's my thing about Leah. Leah, to me, sort of dropped the ball on her Paris season. I feel like she might have been that one cast member because Paris wasn't that compelling. As far as the seasons that were not in the U.S., there was Paris, there was London, there was Cancun. I always felt like Paris, sure, they gave us CT, they gave us Adam, but who else was on that season? Christina, Mallory, Ace. I'd like to see Ace back. But Leah on that particular season was always a little bit like, I almost feel like whoever casted her was like, oh, we casted you and we expected more from you. And she didn't really bring it in the Paris season. I don't think so. It's my honest opinion. Now, I'm only going to be meticulous about this and say that because I feel that in this particular Allstars, I like her personality. She doesn't strike me as a challenge competitor, which is, I'm also not going to knock. Listen, if I'm doing like Big Brother or I'm on Amazing Race or whatever the case, and they offer me show after show after show, not saying Leah's had a bunch of shows, but I think in life, if you get offered a show, like, okay, so let's do the opposite. Leah could have said, no, I'm not going to do the Challenge All-Stars. I'm not necessarily the most physically fit, this, that, and the other. No, I think you step in and you say, sure, let's do it. And she had a really good reason. She had the reason within trying to get money that she dipped into her savings when the pandemic happened. But more than any of that, I'm boldly judging her when it comes to her on the Paris season. But I'm not judging her on the way she seems cool as shit in Allstars 2. So that's what we call growth. So anyways, moving on, we've got the house. It's very fun. It has the old school challenge vibes, which I said I do like. I know my brother likes that as well. I think most people who watch the Paramount Plus version really do like the fact that it just feels like not necessarily summer camp, like the early seasons. But not necessarily as like you've got to unlock this secret code and this double agent all of these things that are happening on the regular challenge that just become so specific that sometimes I think the viewers are getting tired of watching that on the younger MTV version. So it just had a little bit more fun, but again, two great shows, two different demographics. And CT still on the young one. So just wait till he gets to the All-Stars and he competes with people his own age. Fun stuff in the house. And as I was saying a second ago, it is a funner house. It's a more exciting, old school challenge kind of vibes. Derek Chavez gives us some Anit, which is Tina backwards. So it's his alter ego of Tina and ANIT. And then, of course, it's a Paula Abdul song, Opposites Attract. So this is just like the epitome of like, you know what, especially someone like Derek, let's be honest, he also is not the most, physically fit when it comes to the challenges. But I think when you're in the show, you have to give something, you have to either make it fun. You have to like showcase to the house that you're down to work hard, or you're humorous, or you bring good energy, or you're numbers, or you're physically strong, like I said, a CT or a Darrell. So I think like Derek Chavez has the right point. He has had historically times where he's gotten voted in early. So him having fun, dressing as Tina, I think is such a cool thing. Or rather, not Tina, but as Anit. So this is kind of like setting the tone. And then flashing forward, actually, we also have some more fun. Tyler and his massive hips. Oh my gosh. His massive hips and ass combination. He is in some form of drag. I believe he is just doing him. It is so fun. And this is why I'm telling you, I like Tyler on the show. I really do. There's a part of me that's like, Tyler started with Johnny Bananas. Like, Tyler should be having, like, all the successes as Johnny Bananas too. You know, there's something about that I always think about. I'm not sure anyone else really, like, tracks that, but I'm like, because I think, yeah, Tyler had won also on the challenge. He's funny as all shit. And I don't know, like, he keep him on the TV. I'm always for Tyler. So he had fun in drag as well, and that's of course flashing forward episode 2. But let's get to TJ and announcing sort of what they're competing for. We have $500,000. The first challenge that we have is going to have 2 winners, a man and a woman, and basically they will be choosing who goes up for discussion to go up against the loser. So basically, if you win, you have to pick people, which they don't know right off the bat. But if you lose, you're going into, I don't know if they call it the arena or gauntlet. Who knows anymore? It changes every time. So that's kind of what we know. But of course, things are kind of being uncovered as TJ's letting them know. But the most exciting thing that they're really thinking about right now is that it's $500,000, and that's a nice chunk of change, and I would like to win that too. Let me know when there's the podcast contest, and I'm going to win my $500,000. That's what I know. Anyways, they're doing the quick choosing of teammates, which is always fun because you always have somebody who overlooks somebody else and somebody who dodges somebody else, and it just sets the tone as like, all right, well, enough of the fun house and all the drinking and partying and getting to know each other, the cocktail hour and everything. It's now or never. You got to pick a good teammate. So we have this first particular challenge, boarding party. There's 2 boats, there's a bridge, there's a skull, a basket. Like, there's just so much going on. It's a timed event, and I don't know what I think of the challenge, but it's really not important for me to know what I think of the challenge. I think there wasn't necessarily any standouts, or good or bad, but I think that it becomes interesting that TJ rides them because supposedly they should have been, I don't know, he alluded that they took it easier by crawling on the contraption rather than walking through it. But then again, you have Nehemiah who tries to, it feels like he tried to walk through it, and then he falls directly on his nuts, and then, that's quite A, embarrassing, and B, painful as hell. Anyways, it didn't go according to plan as far as maybe the way the challenge producers maybe wanted the first episode to go, and or maybe it did. Maybe I have this weird feeling because of Allstars 1 that the first episode they really like to embarrass the cast in some ways, just to show like how tired and how out of sorts they are. But again, TJ talks shit and says, you guys, need to step it up. But at the same time, we saw Nehemiah try to step across and he falls flat. So it's not anything that, you know what it was? I bet you it was one of those things where on television it looks so easy. But if you got to think about it, they're on water and they're moving, and also probably getting a little bit of the waves, which is going to there was a lot going on. I bet you watching it, you're like, oh, that's totally easy. Just be very still and very patient. You could get across the beam, but not really. But anyways, TJ rides them. I did think it was interesting that Tina does not care. Like, she's the only one who kind of like talks back. Typically, at least on the younger challenge version, the MTV version, typically people don't talk back to TJ because I feel like they want to get casted and stay on the show. Tina was like, oh, whatever. She's a little bit of a shit stirrer in that regard. And honestly, TJ didn't need to ride them that much. But again, I think it really sets the tone what the All-Stars wants to be. The first one, remember, it was the challenge that was in the water, and it showed how tired they were and how old they were. I think that's kind of what the producers want to do for the first episode. It kind of becomes fun to watch. Anyways, he does announce this double elimination. I did allude to it a bit ago, how if you win, you are going to be responsible for nominating 4 people. I think that's entirely too much. I think it ends up making the house instantly mad at each other, and then you have this weird thing where the cast members like start arguing with other cast members and say, well, I thought we had an alliance together, and like, how could you go against me? But it's like, you now force them to, like, you're not going to choose a gameplay that's not going to be good for you. And then therefore you only have a couple of options, and some of those options are going to have you infringe on some of the promises you made, i.e. Ryan and Nehemiah, stuff like that comes to fruition later. But it feels like a little bit too much to me, but it's also, let's see where it goes. You know what I mean? One of the things about when these challenges come up and these double eliminations and these new rules come up and these twists, after these twists come up, it really just has you as a cast member having to think of all the angles. So on that regard, it's okay. As I was stating, the elimination process has the low ranking male and female. They're going to go into the arena, and yes, the winners are going to pick the 4, so on and so forth. Let's see, how do you like this? And is it okay? So my question is, I guess, how would you nominate the players if you're the winner? It feels like when you're at these first couple episodes, at least, you got to go with who just stunk it up. You know what I mean? Because it's the safest way, doesn't keep anything on your hands. Like, you're not necessarily going to be looked at, because bottom line, if someone does really bad and I say, oh, I have to vote 4 people, you did bad and you did bad. So on the basis of that, you're going in. So far at the beginning, it's pretty cool, but this is only going to get uglier because, again, even if the 2 lowest ranking people, outside of the ones that are going into the arena, even if they have just cause to be chosen by who the winner has to put up the people, like, after a while it's like, well, I'm not going to put up somebody who didn't do good and they're within my alliance. Like, that's where it gets hard, and that's where, like, everyone else could telegraph, like, oh okay, well, you didn't put up this person. Let's say the person is Steve. Oh, well, why didn't you put him up? Okay, so he's a number for you. So it gets real confusing. I will chat with my brother next episode to see what he thinks about it. I feel like he enjoys this movement a little bit more than I do. Sometimes I feel like less is more when it comes to that. But you know what? I'm going to go with it. Let me see. So that kind of sets up our episode 1, and then we move right into episode 2. As I said, I'm going to do episode 1 and 2 here, and then we will do episode 3 and so on and so forth with my brother, and we'll kind of break down the episode. But these were sequentially, week to week, and they were kind of tied in together because we have no one that went home this first particular week of viewing. So we're back in the house. Everyone's strategizing. There's more talks of the frenemies with Derek and Nehemiah. Derek and Jody are sort of speaking with the designated arena competitors to see what they want. So, you have Derek and Jody. They are your top 2. They are your winners. So they are going to, they're going to do what works best for them. And in this regard, they're asking each of the lowest ranking people, like, what they want to do, and I think that's the fairest way. You either choose, it's hard. Like, the only thing, like, I'm trying to think, if it was me and I'm the winner with Jody, do I choose, okay, Nehemiah clearly did the worst for the males who are the 2 other males that did the worst, or do I do exactly what, in this case, Nehemiah was the lowest ranking, who does he want to go into? That way he has a better shot. Like, it's hard to make that play, and I don't know in the game if they unanimously, because there's 24 players, I don't know if they unanimously figured that out. But anyways, to that point, Ayana says, I'm going to face everyone. I totally feel like this is a little bit like, shouldn't you still, that's all hoorah and exciting and, take on anybody, but there is still strategy to the end, and I just feel like, you should probably want to at least talk to Derek and Jody and let them know maybe who you want to go against, only on the basis that they asked you. Now, if they didn't ask you, it is what it is. But I think 2 good things. If Ayana says I'll face anyone, great, that shows tenacity. But on the bad side, like, this is a great bonding moment to sort of build your trust with Derek and Jody, who are your top 2 people. And I think maybe that was something that I guess both sides could be played and both sides could be right. But I will say a lot of fans, I think, of the show like to see a more like Ayanna, I'll take on anyone, who cares? You know, that's that same vibe. Like when Yes won on Challenge All-Stars 1, he had that like, all right, and I'll run the regular show too, and I'll take on any of you motherfuckers. You know, like we like it when we see players that are so bold. So on one hand, Ayanna was right. On another hand, I'm like, don't pass up the opportunity to start strategizing, building trust with Derek and Jody, because if you ever become in the bottom and you need Derek and Jody, you know, on your side, that rapport, it's not there. You had that opportunity. Anyways, Nehemiah confuses me because Nehemiah is like playing such a badass game. Like I'm badass. I'm the toughest. Da 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 da. You know, again, from the playbook of Wes. I like Nehemiah, but it's like, what's going on? You know, and it's like, okay, so I could critique Ayanna for just being like, I'll take anyone, but then I got to critique Nehemiah for being like, oh, it's got to be Ryan. It's got to be Derek C. You know. And I just feel like on some level, like Derek C is always sort of being picked on. He didn't necessarily do the worst. And there's all these seasons that he's had to go into the arena or gauntlet or whatever it was called at the beginning. So people think so low of his skill set. And I don't know. You know, I wouldn't be mad if that's who Nehemiah wanted to choose, those two players, if he just, you know, specifically chose them. But when you start making it like you're puffing your chest out and you're like the best player, biggest, baddest player, and then you kind of like, it wasn't kicking anyone while they're down, you know, it's not like Derek can't hold his own and Ryan too, but even Ryan says, I'm one of the littler guys here, and like, you know, you're going to come after me. And I think Ryan also alluded to that they had a little bit of a bond, which turns into Nehemiah kind of blowing it off later in the episode. But, so anyways, that's my conflict, you know. If I'm there and I'm saying I'm Ronnie, I'm the shit, I don't know how I'm the shit I can actually be if I, sure, it's great strategy. You're telling Derek and Jody, the winners, this is who I want. Sure, I'm not going to knock that. But then you're taking on the so-called weaker players. Well, in that case, you can't really puff your chest out, you know. I'm not saying you got to go up against somebody huge, you know, not like saying, give me MJ. Like that's, I mean, we don't got to be stupid either. But there was just something that rubbed me interestingly about that. It's like, Nehemiah, are you tough? Or are you like acting tough, but then you're going to try to get the, you know, smaller players. Typically, I've seen a lot of women sometimes. Like I feel like a Laurel was like that. You know, Laurel's so badass, but it's like sometimes she would like take on some really weaker players, I believe. And I don't know, which one is it? Are you badass? Are you tough? Or are you still a little shook? That's a great way to say it, because I like Nehemiah, but like, are you a little shook to some degree? Because if you weren't shook, you'd be like, whatever. But you start getting mad at Derek, you start getting like, I need it to be Derek, Derek C, I need it to be Ryan. I gotta think away. I gotta think like, wait a minute, which one is it, Nehemiah? No, I'm joking. Steve I thought this was funny. Steve thinks Derek K's wardrobe is funny, and I thought it was funny because one of the things I don't like about the house, the challenge, the regular season, is sometimes when people are the big dogs of the house, no one wants to say nothing to them. But let me tell you, that I like a little onesie situation. Not that it was a onesie, so I'm all for it, a romper, and it wasn't a romper, but I get it. I'm all for it typically, but it was a little too, Derek, it was a little too much of the, it was like a bold like choice, and then the colors were off too. Oh, but going back to my point, sorry, I got excited about that because I do want to just stress that I'm not against I like a male romper, like fucking rock out, you know, I'm with it. But it just was the style choice of the ensemble mixed with the color choice. Like it was a palette that was like a turquoise and like a peach. I don't know the last time turquoise and peach together looked that cool. So I thought it was funny that Steve ragged on him a little bit. But my bigger point is that sometimes within the challenge, these players, like a Derek, who's very popular, no one really like says anything to these popular players because they sort of run the house, so to speak. Even if you're not trying to run the house, you just know that you want to, stay on their good side. They have the numbers. They got a lot of, like, their social game is strong. And Steve coming in, not really being a player, it's not the challenges in his life. It gave him the wherewithal to be like, is this a joke? And I just thought it was so funny the way he delivered it too. And of course, it potentially got Derek K a little bit mad, but it wasn't really malicious. But it was just funny for it to be seen, and for Steve to be so like kind of shit talking, I don't know. I was all for it. In the winner's deliberation, I think it's starting to feel like this series has a little bit of a Survivor vibe because of, the conversations. They're outdoors, they're in the sand. And a little bit, if I were to critique, it almost feels like this particular challenge, Allstars 2, is almost more about nominations than it is about challenges. So I would like to see, as we go forward, things to be more about the challenge and the challenge house and the fun than like nomination on top of nomination on top of, it's just a little much. Anyways, the 4 names are Leah, Casey, Steve, and Derek Chavez. So as far as the house votes, my question is like, how do you play it? Like, are you playing it for like who you want to be eliminated, or are you playing it for like, for instance, as I said earlier, if it's if it's Janae and Jasmine, like you're obviously going to play it where I need Derek to be a vote for me. He's my guy, so this gets confusing. And what made it more confusing is that the people who are going in as essentially the lowest ranking, they're there too, which makes it confusing because now there's no hiding when it comes to, oh, well, I'm voting for, let's say out of the 4 people that are up, who was it? Leah, Casey, Steve, and Derek. Those 4 people are up and everyone's doing the vote. Well, now you can't lie, because if I'm voting and I'm like, oh, I choose Leah, I choose Derek, well, you essentially, if one of the two say, well, why? You can say, oh, well, Nehemiah wanted you, Ayana wanted you, so it's going to get sticky. I don't think this particular 2 episodes, or this is the first time in this particular like deliberation, but it's not sticky yet. But let me tell you, it's going to get sticky to know that you can't even hide behind that anymore. You can't even be like, oh, well, it was so-and-so's wishes, because the person's right there, I mean, they might as well make it more sticky and have the winners in there too. That way everyone could be like, nuh-uh, I didn't say that, and it's going to get wild. I will say, what did Steve say? It was a nothing burger comment. I have not heard of what a nothing burger comment. Well, I've never heard that term. Steve is just Steve. He's funny. Like I said, he don't care if he makes Derek mad. He doesn't care if he knows the strategy. He's 52. He's living a good life. And I think there's room in the game for us viewers. Maybe not for his gameplay, but there's room in this game for people like that. It's fun, Nehemiah chats with Brad and the others, and he's complaining. As I was stating, this is confusing to me because he's so badass. And then he's like, well, Brad, Derek did this vote and I didn't want that vote, and boom, boom, boom. And it's, Brad's even looking at him like, Nehemiah, like, yeah, Derek's my guy, but like, it's a lot to handle for somebody who's proclaiming to be like one of the greatest to ever do it. It's like, it's giving me, Nehemiah is kind of giving me Corey vibes. Like, Corey will always have a complaint, and it's like, you in theory should be like really good, and Corey usually does not win. So it's something about that boldness which I like, but then something about that boldness where it's just like Nehemiah tends to be on the complaining side, or the you better do it this way side, and it's like, you have to win too. But he's becoming a little bit of like a soundbite guy, a lot of like really almost like a villain, some of the things he states, which is really fun. Anyways, Derek K says, now, as far as once the announcements, as far as, because I was just talking a second ago about the way they vote once they're the 4 names are announced. But even before that, Derek Hay kind of like lets everyone know what's up. And he makes a good point. Like, listen, you got to get your house votes in line. Like, we could only vote who we could vote for, and yes, we're sorry that we did what we did, but you got to do the work. And I think that's the truth. If I'm the person who's chosen, and I got to be as pissed as I want at Derek Hay, and I'm going to get him back later for sure. But in this regard, no, I need to make sure that whoever's sitting next to me, that I'm finding a way to go in there and level up and let everyone know, you need my vote, you need my this, you need my that, do you want to run the final with me? Whatever it is that keeps you more compelling and more interesting and more relevant to stay, you have to work for it. So that part can be fun. So within the voting process, the losers are in the deliberation, which I've already mentioned, which again, whoa, it's going to get wild. So our 2 people that go in are Derek and Leah. And as I said, Ryan and Nehemiah have words. I believe, like I said, that has to do with the fact that, like, Nehemiah said to Ryan, you know, I got you. And then it kind of turns into a situation where I don't got you. I want you to go up against me. And that makes people be a little upset, you know, so I get that part. Anyways, this is all the chaos, but then the chaos really gets kind of fun. We have this prom night, which, you know, a lot of camaraderie, costumes, heartfelt conversations. We've got the Tears for Fears song in the background. And then this also breaks our heart, though, because Janae does start to see that Derek Chavez is having some issues. Now, these issues aren't relating to him going in the house, you know, because in regards to this prom, we see Ayanna talking with Leah and being like, oh, you know, whatever, you know, let's just like have fun. And, you know, Ayanna tends to be a little bit of a cheerleader. So she's very like, you know, like, let's just live it up kind of a thing. Now, on the flip side, like I said, Derek is going through something, and Janae does notice, does find out. And we learn that there is a family loss, a tragic loss, a loss within a family, a sister, and you know, some unmentionable, real dark situation. And it is in fact interesting. And I think he made the right choice. Although, how can you know? Just like being compassionate towards Derek and his family, this tragedy happened right as he was going to the house. And I don't know what you do in that situation, but I think you do go on the show, compete, and not have that downtime. I mean, in theory, half of him wanted to stay with his family, and then half of him wanted to be in the house, maybe to just keep his mind busy. And, you know, what he was essentially fighting for was for his sister, you know. And I think that's no choice he would have made would have been the wrong one. But he very well could have said, you know, challenge producers, this happened and I'm not going. I mean, because he stated that it happened so late into the game. Like, he literally was on his way to go compete. And then he has this unimaginable tragedy that, you know, he'll have to deal with forever. And, you know, there was just something about him wanting to put extra into the game and do something, improve something, and grow in certain ways. So I just particularly liked that Janae was there for him, and, you know, all of the people that were just supporting this really tough situation that no one really knew about. You know, he kind of kept it close to the chest, close to the vest, and then he just finally let loose as you know, I guess he was getting ready to go into the arena. And those emotions got to stack up. You know, if you do decide to go to the house versus staying home and dealing with this thing with the family, last thing you want is to be the first person thrown in. Like, that's got to knock your confidence. But hopefully, and this is what we saw a little, is that it gave him a determination, which is really important. Anyways, you know, the emotions that he has, they're high. Leah's emotions are more about, you know, trying to stay in the game because, you know, she doesn't want to lose, or she does not want to lose, but she had the college fund being dipped into during the pandemic for her child, and so it's important for her to, like, you know, stay in the game and do well. So really, Derek and Leah have a lot to prove. So this really sets up an amazing arena. Like I said, I'm doing episode 1 and 2 here together because they go together, you know. And as we go forward, again, my brother will be joining me, and we'll do recap episode 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. But right now let's just get to it. TJ announces the elimination. It's not teams, it's going to be solo, a men's run and a women's run. The game itself is called Dead Weight. It's a problem, it's a puzzle, several chains. The coffin itself supposedly is 300 pounds, but you know, that's visually it looks different between Nehemiah and Ayanna, but we'll get to that. Anyways, once you solve the puzzle there, you're going to be able to pull the chains, and it's basically like getting them across, and the fastest time wins. Nehemiah versus Derek. Nehemiah, of course, leads. They both have two different strategies. Derek, I feel, is very like overwhelmed because based on which particular chain you choose, it could be shorter or longer, and it just feels like the journey is going to be a little tougher. Nehemiah does take off really, really quick, but Derek kind of, you know, is digging deep for his sister. He's digging deep just to be in the game and not to be the first one to go home again. And we get to a point where they get real close. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but I know that I didn't think Nehemiah was going to lose. But, you know, because sometimes with the edit, they make it look real tight. But it would have been really amazing to see Derek Chavez win that and stay in the game, and you know, both for the tragedy that he was overcoming and for staying close with Janae and Jasmine, and he's really close with Ryan too. So I was a little, you know, frustrated for him, and it just because you know why? Because the moment he loses, now it's like he has to go back home, and what does that feel like? You know what I mean? Like, you almost want to prolong it as long as you can. You know, you want to be in this house competing week after week. So a little bit of my heart was just like so down and out, and in fact, I'm thinking when I'm watching it here on Paramount Plus, I'm like, oh my gosh. How is he gonna go, or not he? How is the show gonna be edited as such where we have this great male run, and where Nehemiah just barely beats Derek? How are the women gonna top this? I literally said this in my head. So we have Ayanna and Leah against each other, and of course Ayanna dominates. And, you know, she's making these 300-pound coffins that she's dragging across the dirt seem like nothing. I don't know if it's because it was a different weight or she got different leverage, or it's all about the science as far as, like, the geometry of how you know, transport something. But it was a different experience than what Nehemiah and Derek were going through. Now, the sad thing, and, you know, like I said, Leah has surprised me. I was not a big fan of her on Paris, the Real World season, but I really liked her like just nonchalant personality, slightly like in your face. She was like, oh, when she was getting voted in, she's like, oh well, damn, I guess I gotta be you guys' friend on Instagram. You know, and in reality, she's just a lower ranking person, but like I felt like she had fun within her spirit, you know, within her heart, and I liked that. Now Leah struggles with the carabiner, which is just like already you know, almost like the proverbial, is that the word? You know, the nail in the coffin. It's just like, you know, Leah, you know, we don't necessarily think of her as the strongest competitor, but, you know, it just starts off really, really bad. And she's struggling, you know. Ayanna is just zooming through. She's like in her, like, you know, athleticism 101. She is just like lighting it up. She says powerful as fuck, and she's like jumping, and she's like, you know, full on leap into Nehemiah and just having the greatest of times. On one level, I'm starting to be like, oh my God, that's a little bit like, you know, not being, not arrogant, but like, gloating a little bit. But it wasn't that. Ayanna was just hype. And then the moment that, listen, I'm a softie, so I'm over here with the tears. I'm still feeling bad for the Derek situation. And I already love the Bette Midler Wind Beneath My Wings song. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I cannot freaking believe that Ayanna is going to go and have this solid moment where she's like, come on, Leah, I got you, let's go. You know, no one asked Ayanna to do that. It's becoming literally one of the bigger moments of challenge history, I suppose. I mean, Derek said. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, Ronnie, you're just a softie. Again, you're thinking about the Derek situation. You're frustrated for Leah, and it's just nice to see that camaraderie. But then they go to the damn audience, and I think like Latarian had tears in his eyes. Derek had tears in his eyes. Like Kendall had tears in her eyes. Like it was a moment. And again, watching it probably was an intense situation while the cast members were there. Even TJ, I think, got shook up because that's what you want to see. And that is the difference in the Challenge All-Stars and this older demographic than the Challenge, that airs on MTV. And, the cast members are from here, there, and everywhere. And everyone just cares about having a viral moment and selling their flat tummy tea, no offense, Whereas this particular group, there's just a camaraderie, I think, when it comes down to, like, even thinking about Ayanna. Ayanna's got, I think, 4 kids. Leah's got, like, 1 son, I believe it is. And so they kind of feel for each other in that way. And they all have this, like, well, I'm doing this because, they always have the why. Nehemiah said, I'm doing this to, create more of a legacy for, for my unborn children or whatever. Derek's doing it for his sister. So there's so much emotion on the table. And again, I think I'm just being emotional, but no, I'm having tears in my eyes. When Bette Midler's, You Are the Wind Beneath My Wings, that song comes on. I'm getting hyped just thinking about it, and it was a really, really cute moment. It really built up Ayanna. It really put like this fight in Leah. And, no one necessarily ranks Leah the highest as far as competitiveness, but I think she's badass. I don't know where I would want to see her again. I'm not sure if she's like another show would be more appropriate, but like, you can't knock somebody who gets beat up that bad and then still has the fortitude to just like, sort of not give up. It's kind of like, have you ever like ran, like I think one time I ran, jogged, like a half marathon or whatever. Yeah, the 15 miles or whatever. And I really was dogging it the last couple. And the main thing is just, even if because I guess I hadn't trained as well as I needed to. And it's so much easier just to quit. And it is rewarding for you to be like, okay, look, this is going to be bad, but let me just do the best that I can. And basically it's the element of not quitting. And, TJ Lavin does not like he doesn't like a quitter. So it's just a big moment. Sorry, I'm going all over the place because it was such a big ending for our episode 1 and 2 kind of duo episodes here. Mr. Lavin, our host, graciously sends off Derek and Leah. The whole energy of everyone is really warm. And then he also announces this other damn twist. In my head, I'm like, listen, we just had one of the greatest moments of moments. Why couldn't we wait to do this later? But there is an announcement that there is another twist, which is the life shield, which you could use on yourself or someone else. I would have waited. I would have let the moment be had. But this just kind of basically states that Ayanna going back into the house and Nehemiah going back into the house, they have life shields, and how are they going to use them? I think it's a long way to start discovering how the players use them and how they can be used in regards to almost like a Big Brother backdoor situation. I mean, there's just so many different places it can go, specifically when you have your 2 winners having to vote for people, and then your 2 lowest ranking people having to either say, these are the people I want, or it gives potential to being very sticky. As I said, episode 1 and 2 are very fun. They're connected. Very sad to see Derek and Leah go. Very contradictory to how I said I thought Challenge All-Stars 1 had the better cast. And already, like coming off this second episode, this kind of 2-part episode, in my opinion, I'm already like, okay, we got a show going on here. We have a show going on here. What's going to happen next? Who's going to rise? Is Ayanna going to be everyone's favorite? Is she not going to be everyone's favorite? I'm going to do my best to always come back and just hit you with another episode recapping this great show. The reason that we do it, we meaning me and my brother, is because my brother and I have so many different interests, and the Challenge All-Stars was always something, or not the Challenge, but like these MTV-like shows always are a really great bond for us. I do know that my brother likes these shows a lot more than I do, but it just gives a chance for us to do something together. So again, he wasn't joining me on this first episode here, but he'll join me on the duration of the season, and it'll be great because, again, sometimes when I watch the show, I'm thinking about sound bites and who's the confessional queen, and just like the fun stuff, or even the BTS stuff of, little interviews, podcast interviews I'll hear with some of the cast members. So I'll be able to bring that stuff to the table. And then my brother will always be, in tune with, like, well, in Survivor they do this, and in Big Brother they do this. So one thing you got to look out for is this, da 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 da. So it'll be really, really nice for us to do this together. And if you enjoy it, of course, always go to patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. and just listen week by week. I mean, that's it. All right. This has been another random recap. I'll check you on the next one. Bye.